so we always knew something was happening, right? And now we're starting to understand like the actual science behind it, how we can affect it, how we can change it. And by being able to add this enzyme, you're taking it past a level that a yeast is naturally going to be able to do. You know, I always tell people, like, you already paid for your hops, like, get the most out of them.
Welcome to Henhouse Unruffled, an audio companion to the beers of Henhouse Brewing Company. Each episode will take a deeper dive into each beer's concept, recipe, can art, sensory, and more with your hen host, Fridge.
What up?
What's up, Unruffled listeners? It's Fridge, your host for the Henhouse Unruffled podcast. And today, I'm joined by frequent Unruffled collaborator Bob, as well as brewmaster here at Henhouse Brewing Company, Zach Kelly, and one Kyle Summers from Lallemand Brewing. We're here to talk all about our new petite saison, What We Will. We brewed this beer for May Day. It celebrates workers' rights and the championing of the 8-hour workday and the 40-hour work week. 8 hours for work, 8 hours for rest, 8 hours for what we will. Without further ado, let's get it going. Welcome to Unruffled, everyone. Really excited about today's episode because we are drinking one of my absolute favorite beers that's come out of the production department in so long. Sitting here with Kyle Summers, who is formerly of Henhouse stock, and now you're over at Lallemand Brewing Company these days, correct?
That is correct. Yeah, I was a brewer here for a year and a half, 2 years.
Excellent, man. And it's never been the same since. No, I'm just kidding. The beers are still really good, but we miss you back there, man. And the beer we're drinking today is called What We Will. Petite saison brewed for May Day, celebrating workers' rights, the 8-hour workday.
Yeah, big fan of that. Big fan of having time off. We actually brewed this on Cesar Chavez Day. And so there's some deep ties to kind of labor movement beliefs there, and tied into kind of a local history and a person who fought for all of us to have our weekends. And, you know, sacrifices were made by these people. And the very least we can do is craft the most amazing beer to help celebrate that and to continue to have that conversation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You and I also just got back from Boonville this weekend, so forgive me if I sound a little hoarse and loopy. The residuals of Boonville may make its way into this podcast today.
Yeah. I think we've made it far enough now that we can say that we survived. You know, it's not just getting through the festival. It's like you have to make it another 24 hours after before you can count that victory.
100%. The people were just drinking this beer up at the beer fest as well. This was one of the first kegs that was at near empty at the fest, and it honestly, it's like the perfect day drinking beer. Just super easy, incredible. I mean, you were saying you were getting like notes of like pear in there. Definitely. I was telling people like soda crackers, lime zest. I saw grape in the menu description this morning. Yeah. But we'll save that for sensory first.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just love living in a world where at a beer festival, people are coming up and requesting a low alcohol saison. You know,
Right.
It's not what's your strongest beer. It's not, yo, I heard you have a triple IPA. It's, I heard you have just like the cleanest, most enjoyable, refreshing beer. I love that.
It was
Very-
the talk of the town. No
A very
doubt.
far cry from people walking up and saying, "I'll have your ale, please." Like that one.
I'll have a hen house. It's like, yeah, great. You're in the right place. Which one?
Yeah, we had somebody come up to the tent at the end of the night. You guys selling any beer to go? I was like, you know, we're not here to sell the beer. We're here to raise money for charity, but I appreciate you. I wish I had something for you, and enjoy your life.
And goodbye.
We'll see you next time.
Better luck next year.
Yeah, exactly. But the rallying cry is something that I thought was really cool. Maybe you can expound upon this a little bit, Bob. I forget exactly how it goes.
It's like less for rallying cry, more than a concept, because it's kind of a lot to chant. But 8 hours for work, 8 hours for rest, and 8 hours for what we will.
There it
And
is.
that's the leisure time. This is back before the idea of time off or breaks was a thing.
I mean, I just see the image on the can itself, and I just feel like I'm brought to a moment with our hen holding a sign that says, "We brew with you, We stand with you, workers' rights.
Yeah.
It's good stuff. And I'm just happy we are at Henhouse trying to give a work-life balance, and this theme with our saisons, I think, is like super rad. We have the honest day's work and, the paid vacation. And now this one really just fits in really well with that branding. And I know everyone was like just tickled that we were going to do a petite saison. We're all super excited for when it was coming down the pipeline. And now that it's here, I'm telling y'all, do not sleep on it. It is absolutely incredible. This is definitely one of my top 5 Henhouse beers at this point, I think.
Yeah, this is so good and so drinkable. It's really, really approachable, and I love that it's like a rustic saison, yet it's also super ahistorical because we have Belgian saison yeast and 19th century imagery and New Zealand hops.
Yeah,
which never would have been in a old-timey saison.
But all German malt.
Yeah, but it's great.
Yeah. And we did use the Lallemand yeast here, right? It's a dry yeast. Usually we're using liquid yeast, so that's something different for us.
Yeah. So since moving on from production brewing, I'm now working for Lallemand, and so this is a company that started as a bread yeast company in Montreal. Eventually got into brewing in the early 2000s, and about 10 years ago, really started to put some money into that business unit, realized there was a lot of growth and some really cool things, especially going on in the U.S. market, and started developing new stuff. And so this is our Belle Saison, and it's called a French saison strain. Those are typically classified as like lower esters, so you're going to get less banana and bubble gum, but you'll get more of like clove and spice. Calling it a French saison gets a little tricky the deeper you dive into it, because a lot of these yeasts kind of have these like muddled histories, and so the brewery that kind of made the typified dry spicy clovey saison, which personally is my favorite in terms of like a clean fermented where you're not using bacteria or wild yeast. Originally that yeast probably came from a yeast bank in Belgium, but realistically back when a lot of this stuff was happening, those borders were a little bit fuzzier, and it was more about local communities. And that's what the saison is really all about, is, working with what's available within your local community, serving it within your local community. This was a beer for workers, and, you'd brew with whatever you had handy. So yeah, they probably didn't have any hops from New Zealand, but they definitely had access to interesting and differentiated malts and grains. And, it would be a lot more common, especially historically, to not be using hops, or to be using hops in conjunction with other bitters, bittering compounds and herbs and other stuff like that. And Belgium, of course, has a rich history of pushing what is and is not acceptable for, going into beer. They obviously didn't have quite the strict rules that, say, Germany did. But saison as a style is, there's a lot going on there. And I think that the saison strain that we have really typifies what I look for in a saison. Again, just really dry, crisp, clean. I love that the word elegant keeps getting used with this beer. It makes me feel fancy.
Yeah.
This is a pinkies up saison.
It absolutely is.
Big time, big pinkies up. I'm curious if the name of the yeast, Lall Brew Belle, does that mean something?
Yeah, Belle is just beautiful. It's, a French word. And then, Lall Brew is just the brewing business unit of Lallemand Brewing, because they do everything from animal nutrition to probiotics. And we generally don't use those in beer.
Well, the future awaits, perhaps.
Well, they're definitely looking into some like really interesting stuff, and it's cool working with a company that has a not only a robust R&D department. My coworkers have PhDs, but they've also worked in breweries. These are people who came from labs and production positions, and so throughout our organization, our marketing team, these were people who worked in breweries, and so we've kind of really integrated that kind of communal aspect that I also see, in places like Henhouse, where they value, people who are they're not just there for a paycheck, but also because they care and they're interested, and that there's value in being a part of your community.
Absolutely. It's something that I'm always reminded of when actually you go to Boonville Beer Festival. You're in Brewers Camp with all these really passionate people who care so much about what they're doing and what they're putting forth into the world, and we're all there to sort of just like feed off each other's energy, and it's intoxicating beyond the ethanol,
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. And Zach, you had a hand in writing the recipe for this beer.
Yes.
Yeah.
I wrote this recipe. We'll go into a little bit more in sensory first, but essentially I had a big old grand scheme of making a beer for my wife, who happens to be born on May 1st. So the evolution of saison since I originally threw something together about 13 years ago, and I'm pretty sure I dry hopped with CTZ and had like all kinds of weird red malt and like whatever it was that we had at our little homebrew shop at Keegan Ales just to see what happened. Kind of started drilling into what it was that she really liked, and New Zealand hops are something that have always kind of popped up on what she liked. So we did a really small New Zealand dry hop, and we both like bone dry beer. So talking about where this finished off, it finished at 0.7 Plato, which is getting close to no sugar left. So I was pretty happy with that. Other than that, just as far as it's comprised of, we have extra premium German Pilsner malt, which is very, as you were saying, wafer, water cracker, sort of super pale, usually used for something like a classic German lagers, and then some Barca Pils, which is an heirloom malt. It's primarily Barca Pils is like most of the grist bill, about 60%, which has a little bit more body and residual sugar to it. So kind of balancing back and forth with something that's malt for like a Helles lager, as well as something for like a really pale Pilsner. And then, as we said, old German style as well, first word hopping, where we put the hops in about 150 gallons into the lauter. So try to use it to make a very smooth bitterness, no like kind of harsh feeling on that. And then Waiiti New Zealand hops, which is where we're getting some of that like pear, peach, lime zest sort of flavors on that, both in the whirlpool and the dry hop. We fermented it a little bit cooler, so we're fermenting it at 64 to 66 to kind of help us not get those really estery, phenolic sort of flavors out of it. We didn't really let it like completely take off. We did it almost more like a saison lager. So that's what I made for my wife.
That's awesome. Like, this is like her jam right here. Like, you want to make her a birthday beer every year? Because I'd be excited for that.
Yeah, this was a surprise reveal to her at our company party.
Awesome. She has great taste.
Amazing taste. Yes.
Yeah, I love this beer, and we like working with Lallemand. Like, there's no juiced. The incredible Sour Vissier coming from y'all. It's a neat company because y'all own Siebel as well.
Yeah, and
that's dope.
And it's not something that I think that they tried to make a big deal out of. I mean, now we're starting to, like, when we're going to events, we'll like share a booth. But for a long time, that was kept kind of as a quiet thing, just because Siebel is, for anyone who doesn't know, Siebel is the oldest brewing school in the United States and one of the oldest in the world, and it is in Chicago. And I am an alumni of there. And it's a really cool school, great program, learned a ton. But Lallemand, didn't want people to think it was going to be a sales pitch or something like that. It was, Siebel stood on its own for so long. They had no intentions of changing anything they were doing. And so it's still independently run. I still get to talk to them. I did a lot of guest lectures for them, especially during the pandemic when they were switching to a more digital format.
Right.
So that's been an absolute blast, getting to be re-involved with Siebel. And yeah, it's been a lot of fun. We have, like I said, robust R&D department. So Sour Vissier is one of those things that's come out of that relatively recently. And we have more stuff coming out soon. And some of it's creating fantastic flavors and interesting products, and some of it is coming from a production standpoint, making the job a little bit easier for brewers, which coming from that side is always appreciated. But really cool stuff coming down the pipeline.
Right.
Still just a really cool connection too, and it's less of a sales pitch for the school, maybe, and more of a pitching of the yeast into beer with what y'all are trying to do these days, right?
Yeah.
Got to sneak that in there.
So it is. I mean, it is separate, but we are together, and through that we have this immense pool of knowledge. And so, every once in a while, someone will ask me a question that leaves me absolutely stumped, and so to have that network available to me, I was a production brewer for 10 years, and you sometimes you feel like, oh, I've seen everything, but you really haven't. And someone will ask you this crazy crazy weird question, and it's great that I can not only delve into that, but they also have this immense collection of yeast specimens and stuff available on slants. And sometimes you can innovate by looking backwards, right? And so to have that long history and the resource available is monumental.
That is awesome, man.
Yeah, and then the AB Vickers unit, which the abbreviation ABV is absolutely killer. It's, as a copywriter, y'all are killing me with that. But we used your fabulous aromazyme in one of our In Theory beers. I think the first batch of Many Worlds had aromazyme in it, which is doing some of that same like really fascinating cutting edge hydrolyzing of glycosidic bonds to unleash previously unenjoyed flavor and aroma.
Yeah, so that's, now you're starting to get into a topic that's something like on a personal level I'm really excited about, and part of my job is, getting paid to learn, which is so enriching for me on so many levels, but you're talking about biotransformation. And so what's happening, right, is there's enzymes that are naturally occurring in some brewing yeast, most brewing yeast in varying levels, and, we're starting to understand that, terpenes and sulfur compounds such as thiols are really the driving force coming out of a lot of these hops. And so what's happening is these compounds are in there, but depending on the hop varietal, depending on the lot, and a lot of other factors, they may be in a bound form, which means that they simply those puzzle pieces won't fit into the receptors in our nose. And so what this enzyme does is it snips a linkage, and now all of a sudden that puzzle piece fits. You can smell these terpenes. They were always in the hops. You just needed to get them out. Yeah. And so we always knew something was happening, right? And now we're starting to understand like the actual science behind it, how we can affect it, how we can change it. And by being able to add this enzyme, you're taking it past a level that a yeast is naturally going to be able to do. I always tell people, like, you already paid for your hops, like, get the most out of them.
Right. I love that.
You're extremely well-spoken. I just want to say that, Kyle. I had such a good time with you this weekend, man, and I'm super stoked that we got to make this beer with you. And honestly, I think we should make this like an annual collab, because this beer is so damn good.
Totally.
And just the fact that you guys also are providing us with the power to create like one of the best fruited Goza series that I've ever like tasted. I absolutely love our juice series. Like, I didn't realize we had that like strong connection, because I didn't know that's where that yeast came from.
Yeah.
When I found that out, I was like, wow, like Lallemand's like really been there with us for a long time. So it just makes sense that we finally came together and did something cool like this.
Yeah. I'm so happy too. And so this is also going to be brought out to the Craft Brewers Conference, or CBC, which is happening next week in Minneapolis. And for me to be able to then take not only something that's like one of our products, but a brewery that I hold near and dear to my heart, to bring that to a bunch of other brewers on a national, really international level. You'll absolutely see people coming from outside the U.S. for this event. And we were talking about the beer. I was like, I need this to be the best beer I've ever made, and I think we nailed it. I think we nailed it.
Dude,
and this is beer that brewers want to drink, right? It's mellow, it's crisp, it's clean, and so to just be able to show off like, two parts of my life that I just love so much, I'm beyond stoked at how good this beer turned out.
Yeah.
And you were doing a few other collabs leading up to the CBC as well, right? It's not just Henhouse and Lallemand, but Lallemand and a lot of other breweries are going to be stunting at the CBC. Is that right?
Well, yeah. So we're going to be pouring a bunch of beers brewed with our products, which is kind of our fun way to show off. Your booth is just going to be a little bit more popular when you have free beer. I haven't gone into the marketing science behind that, but
it's very complicated stuff.
There's a lot of numbers involved, but so we apparently, before my time at Lallemand, they always wanted to have a booth where they could pour, and they finally, just figured out everything they needed to do to make it happen. And so now that we're pouring all this stuff, so this is the only one where it was like a real collab, and then one other collaboration brew I did with Gilman Brewing down in Berkeley. Some really awesome dudes down there.
Yeah.
And so that was a West Coast IPA, also made with aromazyme, and so that one was a double dry hop. With some Simcoe and Motueka, and I haven't had that one yet. I might have to drive down tomorrow to go get it, but the brewers and everyone I've talked to said it's just come out amazing as well. So I love that we could show off the Bay Area, and the local scene here with our products.
John Grant is a dear old friend of mine. I'm sure he's treating your yeast very well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, it was great.
Yeah, shout out to John Grant. Everybody loves that guy.
Shout out to John Grant. Yeah, no, I really appreciate them, letting me come in and do this, and I'm just excited. I miss brewing. I miss being involved. I liked writing recipes. I liked, weighing out hops and putting hops in the boil kettle while getting my picture taken, which I believe is the most important part of the collaboration brew.
It's not a collab until you get the hop shot.
Exactly.
And for us, the Brew Deck Brady Bunch moment is key.
Yeah, that is the emotional payoff that I desperately crave.
Right.
Fix or it didn't happen.
I was like posting the pump post for this yesterday, and I noticed that the Gilman post was up as a collab post with Lallemand right before that one. So you're just like all over the social media right now, and I love it, man.
Yeah, in like the brewing world, I get to pretend to be a rock star. You know, like I get to skip lines at festivals and be like, oh, look at all these guys waiting in line. I'm going to walk behind the booth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you seen me? I'm on like 3 different social media accounts right now this week.
Yeah, I'm pretty much trending.
Yeah.
Start getting that influencer money. Do they just mail me the check or?
I'm not sure how that works. Let me know if you find out.
Yeah. Ask Elon. I think he's got this all figured out.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, totally. Hopefully he doesn't buy another bird company.
This beer is great, and it pairs well with threatening robber barons.
100%.
Yeah.
Threaten robber barons while drinking it with your wife.
Yeah.
That's how I want to spend my time, you know?
That's nice. That's really nice.
You know, I'm actually like, because part of this beer, like the last little turn of phrase is pair this beer with spending your time exactly as you wish. And for me, like, beyond being at work and hanging out with all you wonderful folks, I really love playing Dungeons and Dragons. So I'm excited for this at the table. Like, this is like the perfect D&D beer to me, just because like those sessions can go for like 5 hours and you can get real thirsty after eating like an entire bag of Cheetos. So I'm gonna let you know what the pairing's like with the orange dust on the rim of this later this week when I get my session together. But
Are you gonna like Cheeto dust the rim like you would like a margarita?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no rules. No one. Like, it's not that you can't do that.
It's just, I don't know if you should. You have the power. I'm also excited to use some of these bitters that you brought into us, man. Is this just your like passion thing that you're doing on the side?
Yeah. So right, everyone needed a COVID hobby, and so I had taken a class at a distillery that's actually about a block away from here, and it was hosted by a woman who runs a local apothecary, and it was about, it was like a little history of cocktails, and the activity was making bitters. And so I had bought that as a gift to my wife for Christmas. We just decided like, hey, we don't need any more stuff. Like, let's do an experience. And I'd originally looked at maybe like a cooking class, and I just kind of stumbled on that. And I'm like, this sounds totally cool. And so we took the class, and this was, I guess, December of 2019. So clock was ticking for the world shutting down. And so it did shut down, but another really interesting thing happened in the interim was my grandmother gifted me a book, and it was my great-great-grandfather's notebook from what he would do in the late 1800s, and the way he supported his family was by making inks, dyes, tinctures, perfumes, and cocktail bitters.
Wow.
And so he did all sorts of stuff. Yeah, and so his handwriting is not the easiest to read, but I've been going through and copying what he's done, and at some point I'm going to try to like get it digitized and like make that as a gift to the rest of the family. But it's a fascinating look at kind of what his raw materials were available to him, his processes, his recipes. And, so he would be writing with this ink that he had just made, and he'd be like, I thought this ink was going to be a little bit more blue, but as you can see, it's very green. But
whoa.
Yeah. So I found this like rich history, and one of the recipes that's in there is actually, if you take a deeper dive into the history of bitters, is a hotly contested recipe because it's supposed to be lost to time, and I believe I found it, and so it might be this weird holy grail of bitters. And so I just started getting into it, and so I was like, all right, well, like, what do I want? What can I not just go out and buy? And for me, there is a deep love of hops, and as a material there is so many great flavors. We're talking about like the biotransformation, all these compounds that are available, where we're just starting to understand everything that goes into them, because it's almost impossible to just ascribe a numerical value. Oftentimes our noses are actually better at perceiving some of these like sulfur compounds like thiols. Like, we're better than a mass spectrometer. And so I wanted to find a way to get those into bitters, either as a spike for beer or to put into cocktails. But I've also found that cooking playing with them has been really great. They go great in salads. Just adding a little bit of bitterness really opens up the rest of the flavors and can kind of balance off of the sweetness and the sourness that are sometimes going into these bitter receptors or something where we're just starting to get a better understanding of from like a food science perspective. But we have these like a ton of bitter receptors. And so maybe our brains are linking this to herbs and roots that we've used for millennia to solve a lot of our problems, right, from a medicinal standpoint. And I was never trying to cure any ailments. I was just trying to create something that was flavorful and interesting and would add complexity to drinks. And so I've done Citra lemongrass, I've done Citra grapefruit, I've done Simcoe and dark cherry. The only non-hopped one that I've done so far that did turn out amazing was a maple Gravenstein. So I wanted to use some fresh Gravenstein apples from West County, Sonoma, and really just highlight what I consider to be like a beautiful local flavor. And you can even just put something like that on applesauce or vanilla ice cream, and it created all these amazing flavors. So I've gone on an absolute deep dive with the bitters making, and people keep asking like, when are you going to start selling it? I'm not sure I want to monetize my hobby because I think that might take the fun out of it. I'm scared to find out. Yeah, I don't want it to be a job, and so it's just something that I get to make and enjoy, but then I also get to share with my friends. And like the only payoff that I really want is like if you make a cool drink with it or you find some cool combination, tell me about it. Yeah. Text me, send me a picture of this like amazing cocktail you made. Like I just made this gin tonic with this great local gin, and then I put a couple drops of your bitters in, and it changed my life. That's all I need.
Yeah, I mean, like giving your friends something that you made with your hands and them enjoying it is certainly payment enough. You know, like, and with creating bitters, is it something that you're using like a distillation chamber to do that, or like?
No, and that might be kind of a next step. Would be if I really want to pull out the compounds myself. But really, the only difference between like a tincture and a bitters by definition, a tincture is just an ethanol steep of a single ingredient. To qualify as a bitters, it's an alcohol steep, but you have to have at least one root, one bark, and one aromatic. And usually I'm using, multiple roots, multiple barks, and then, the aromatics are kind of going to design like the flavor around that bitterness. And so finding that balance has been really interesting. And so usually what I'm doing is for the hops, I'll do them in a tincture separately, and then I'll bring the rest of my ingredients together and then blend it back. And then I'll back sweeten either with like some honey or some agave or something like that.
Okay, cool.
And, because different compounds are going to come out at different times in this steeping process. And so by doing them individually, you have more control. You can smell it, taste it every day. And then you can be like, all right, today's the day I love this. And then, strain out your ingredient, whatever you've added, and then you can blend it back in a more controlled way. So I've been getting a little bit more complicated with that. Our bar that we built right before the pandemic, also great time, is like somehow filling up with just like jars of stuff. So,
right, of course. Yeah, somehow.
Yeah. No, it's been fun. And so, I'm basically just using really strong alcohol. And so the Everclear that you can buy in California is limited to 120 proof. And it feels like it should be illegal, but you can actually have plastic liter jugs of Everclear delivered to your house.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, we live in 2022, baby.
Yeah. What a time to be alive.
100%.
Yeah.
I'll bring you back some of that 180 from New York.
Oh,
they let
boy.
But
they let you go all the way.
My parents used to make Kahlua every year for Christmas and give that out as family, like a family gift. And so they would actually drive to Reno to get real Everclear just to do it. That's the level of commitment our family brings to helping people get intoxicated in a flavorful and an enjoyable way.
Yeah, my partner, Ash, has been experimenting quite a bit this last year. We recently moved into a place that has a whole walk-in pantry. So there are just so many jars of tinctures. She's a tincture-aholic. There's like 6 huge bottles of Smirnoff, just like for tincture making. Like, I don't drink Smirnoff. No one drinks it to get drunk. We just use it to make fun creations. So that's super cool. Feels like maybe we should get you two together and
oh, yes, please.
Get a little collab.
More collabs. Collabs on collabs.
Right, yeah. No, the Bitter Alchemist and Ash Hay Art come together.
Yeah, no, that sounds amazing. I'd love to just pick her brain. And, and everyone's taste buds are different, and they have different ideas about what does and does not work together. And, something I enjoy might not be something that everyone else enjoys, but to, try to use words to describe these sensations and then share those ideas is awesome. And that gets down to like the fundamentals of sensory evaluation. And so by having these little steeps, you know, you can take these like really interesting dives into some of these ingredients. And for me, sourcing the ingredients is, you know, almost as much fun as the rest of the process. I get to go and try and find these like obscure products. Like I was working with it's Alaskan ginger root is one of its many names. It's also called the Devil's Walking Club, and it's like ginger and mint and like eucalyptus and all these like really bold flavors. And I had no idea what that was going to smell or taste like, but to be able to find some of that and use some of that was just like such a cool experience.
Yeah, and it's building memories for you too, which is going to help you later on when you're doing sensory on anything.
Yeah, I'm gonna be drinking this like Brett fermented beer with kind of that like menthol eucalyptus, and I'll turn to the guy at the bar next to me and I'll go, you know, this tastes kind of like Devil's Walking Club. and he's just gonna look at me with this vacant stare, and I'll just be like, I'm sorry for bothering you, sir. Yeah.
I have noticed that things that are made with hops generally sort of like turn me off when it's like in that sort of homemade world. Like there's a lip balm that Ash uses that has hops in it, and I don't know what the process is to make that, but it just tastes like pure trans 2-nonenal to me. It's like oxidized as fuck. And I'm like trying to like kiss my sweetie, and I'm like, damn, like my work has been training me for 4 years to fucking hate this flavor so much. I'm so sorry. Please wash your face.
That's rough. I mean, it's like I can't enjoy like diacetyl in a white wine. It's like I get that they're doing it on purpose, but I just can't get past that. And it's hard. I mean, you know, these are extremely bitter compounds, and you can absolutely overload. I mean, you know, it's like IPAs back in the day that turned into like a nuclear arms race of IBUs, and it wasn't making a better beer, and it just turned into this kind of gimmicky thing, and it was just grassy and overbearing. And I think there's still people who, you know, 10, 15 years later say, oh, I don't like IPAs. And it's like, well, no, you probably just don't like something that's that aggressively bitter. So like if I hand them a Henhouse IPA where they're using hops in like a more subtle, more nuanced way and balancing everything off of each other, I think you could probably change their mind. But hops aren't for everyone, and bitter is not for everyone. It's a lot, and we don't always get a lot of it in our everyday, you know, diet. You know, we're you know, maybe high fat, high sugar, and not a lot of bitter. You know, arugula in your salad might be, you know, the only like real experience you're having with that. And so there is like a little bit of like having to like readjust your palate, but it can be confrontational, and it's about finding that balance and to have it still be interesting without it just being bitter. And that's really what I'm doing when I'm designing my recipes, is finding something that's going to create something interesting. And usually I have, you know, an idea in mind of what it's going to taste like. I can usually get it pretty close, but it can't just be over the top hops for the sake of adding more.
Right. It's funny that you bring it up like that too, because you can really retrain your palate to like certain things. Like I remember when there was a time in my life I did not eat or drink anything sweet for like a year and a half, and all of a sudden, like when I switched back to like try something sweet again, it was just awful. Like I couldn't do it anymore. I had learned to love just bitter. You know?
Sure.
Like bitter was my thing. Like I want homemade mate, just like the rawest, most like bitter shit that you can come up with, and like black coffee. And like now I'm back on that like Santa Claus shit, you know? But shit, this has been awesome. Thanks for coming on, Kyle. Like what we will, petite saison. Y'all need to come get this beer. I don't think it's going to last very long because it is incredible.
Yeah, it's so good.
Yeah, everybody come drink it. Thanks so much, Kyle. It's been a pleasure being able to work with you again here.
Oh, I love coming back to Henhouse every chance I get. I haven't worked here in a couple years, but I'm still here all the time because you make the best beer in the world.
Yeah.
You were working this weekend. I really appreciated the extra help pouring.
Yeah, I might be a unicorn. I'm like the only production brewer who enjoyed working beer festivals. I think it might be classified as some sort of mental disorder in the DSM-4 handbook at this point, but I just love it. And they're excited, I'm excited. And for every like one interaction where it's just like, oh, this person is awful and they're rude and pushy, it's like, how are you doing? And they're like, what's your strongest beer? I was like, that's a weird answer to my question, but you know, for every one of those reactions, you get a lot of people who are just excited, and that excitement for me is a reminder of why I got into this industry, and that sense of community has real meaning and value. And I love that Henhouse has always embodied that to me. And that was, that's part of the reason why I wanted to even come here in the first place. It's just like, let's be involved and very intentional about it.
Absolutely. Like we go out to an event and, Bob has been an incredible leader in this sense for me personally, just going out and putting your best foot forward, having fun with people, talking about your passion, and not running out of beer on purpose early. Like, we're there to pour beer all the way through the fest. We're there to stoke people out. And we're there to have a good time because what we're doing is fun and awesome. And that stuff's reflected out at the beer fest.
Well, but how are they going to know your beer is great if you don't run out of it? How are they going to know it's great if they can't taste it?
Right.
You got a point there.
There is some kind of...
Fuck, that is good marketing. I've really been doing this wrong.
Opposite marketing right there. That is the psychology twist that we never thought of.
Yeah, there's a spreadsheet there with the free beer and the running out of it where the intersection is.
All right, we'll find it.
Yeah.
We'll find it. We'll keep trying.
Maybe you go like, we were out, but I found some more.
Oh, there you go.
That's
false.
the
false scarcity. I'm doing you a favor, bud.
Yeah. For you, I'm gonna hook up this other one that we just found buried in the dirt here from 2 years ago.
What up, y'all? What we will drop.
Yeah. Come try this beer. I'm just unbelievably happy with how this turned out, and just to be involved is an absolute pleasure.
Hell yeah! Cheers.
Cheers.
And now, Sensory First.
Welcome back to Sensory First. We got a great big group here. I am Bob from the marketing department here with
Brewmaster Zach Kelly
and
production manager Nick Marrera.
And also
marketing coordinator Fridge.
Yeah, and we are talking about What We Will, our newest saison, never before brewed, coming out in partnership with the fine folks at Lallemand. So this is differentiating from our usual saison yeast that drives all of our saisons. We're driving down a different road.
Yeah.
Tell me about it.
We're going all the way down a different path here today. So what we're using for this batch is a Bell Saison yeast. It's a little less estery and a lot cleaner. You can still ferment it at really high temperatures and like get those phenolics. This one, we decided to do a little bit of a colder temperature on it.
Yeah.
So just that little bit of Saison ester, not like high phenols, not high clove, anything like that. Just like a really clean, pure Saison flavor.
Yeah, this is super drinkable, fermented at a downright brisk 66. My word.
Cold Saison, it's the new style.
Right?
Watch out, cold IPA.
Cold Saison is creeping up on you. And this yeast character is like not phenolic. This to me is perceiving pretty different from what we normally rock. And it's so much gentler and it's really nice. I'm so excited. These are my first moments tasting this beer. Nick, you've made a saison or two here at Henhouse. How do you feel about this departure?
This is my first time trying this too. I refused to try it the whole time it was in fermentation.
You're like, that's not Napoleon. I'm mad at you.
Yeah. Dry yeast. What are we, homebrewers?
Go on.
I really like this. And the aroma presents itself as a saison does. It's got that real specific saison aroma, but the flavor, some nice pear I'm feeling.
Yeah.
It's nice and crisp.
Yeah, I tried to make a saison that is super easy to drink. My first ones that I ever made were in a very homebrew style where I just put way too many hops and like malts and all this other stuff on it. For my engagement rager was what we originally called it, and I made an Ragin' Saison.
Yeah.
And so now, about a decade later, I've revisited a dry hopped saison for my wife's birthday. This won't come out before then. So she'll find out on release day in a couple days that I made her a saison again.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Man. Yeah, I like how subtle the malt character is, but the yeast character is also pretty subtle, so you can sort of pull out that like little bit of water cracker or like soda cracker character from the malt. It's really delicious.
The tiny little Waiiti dry hop too it's perfect. I think it really drives home the point that I'm always trying to make, that you don't have to dry hop everything at IPA rates. Like dry hops can be beneficial and not be out of control 8-pound per barrel crazy bullshit.
Right.
Good job, Zach.
Oh, thanks, man. The other thing that I tried to do here that we don't do often is a first wort hopping. So I use
The
something
devil,
different.
you say?
I know, right?
Yeah.
So instead of doing like a big old charge of CTZ or like a high utilization alpha hop, we used Sterling, which I really like. Obviously, we're not going to get a lot of flavor out of it, but that really early addition in the beginning of just running off, not even boiling yet, will give like a much gentler bitterness. It'll still be there, but it won't be like as sharp on the palate.
Yeah. That is fascinating. I feel like maybe this is the first time we've first wort hopped.
I've never done it.
Yeah, that's really cool. And you don't see that pop up in a lot of beers. It's a pretty controversial move. I was actually just listening to a podcast from 2020 last night where a bunch of folks were like about to fight each other over first wort hopping and what they thought about it. And
Give me
it's
their
been less
names.
than 12 hours. It's a gentleman from Saint Somewhere Brewing out of Florida, Bob Sylvester, and he was talking to some other really neat folks on the Milk the Funk podcast, which is pretty cool.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and it's Milk the Funk. When are they ever talking about hops? But this one moment they happened to be, and it was just first wort hopping, and now I'm drinking a first wort hop beer. And of all of the Waiti saisons, this is definitely the first that I've had. It's really fun to see a hop in a really like old school rustic European beer that is super cutting edge. It's a New World hop, but it's an even newer world hop. It's out of New Zealand.
The French New Zealanders are going to love this beer.
Right? I love this. And then I'm seeing a grain in here I'm not familiar with, extra premium pills. Has all of our other Pilsner malt been trash because it's not extra premium like this one?
Yes.
Okay, good to know. Listen up, Wireman. Where are you getting this extra premium pills from?
Extra premium is also a Wireman product. It's just super, super light Pilsner, basically, which obviously, because I don't know how to call well enough, I then used an heirloom Barca Pils to give flavor, and then probably ended up with some sort of just regular old Pilsner somewhere in the middle.
When these first wort hops were like landing in the mash, tell me more, like a little bit more about that mechanically. Like, what are they plopping onto?
Well, first we left them in the kettle.
Okay. Okay.
So it's the first runnings, essentially. So it's like that first high strength wort. So basically, once you start running off into the kettle, you add them right to the kettle.
Tight. And I'm definitely going to do some more research on first wort hopping because I got that totally confused with mash hopping just now. Okay. Do some more research on that. But that's really cool. Did the folks at Lallemand, who reached out to do this one for us as a collab so that they could showcase some stuff at the upcoming CBC conference, did they give you any like tips or direction on like how they wanted to ferment this, or they're like, keep it at around 66, or, for some reason use this saison yeast at lager temperatures? They're like, dude, once you free rise to like 97 degrees, that's when this yeast really starts to show itself. Did they give us any direction like that?
No, they came to us, with a couple ideas on different yeast and stuff like that they wanted to use. And I had kind of had this beer in mind for specifically still to go back to my wife's birthday and making her a beer that I think she would really enjoy and the type of beers that she likes to drink.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, cool. You have this yeast that I like. Let's use that one. And I'm going to do this with it. And then they took a look and they're like, sounds great. It sounds like if you visit the Lallemand booth at the Craft Brewers Conference, you'll probably see a lot of Sour Vissier because they use a lot of like sour yeasts, West Coast and hazy IPAs and other stuff that's a little bit more on their cutting edge, newer yeast. This is something that they've been working with a little longer. So It sounds like Kyle, who will be on our What We Will podcast, was pretty excited to have something that was not a palate wrecker on the table.
Yeah.
Lallemand they're really bringing back the dry yeast. Like, I made the joke about home brewing with dry yeast, but like their dry yeast is really nice. Like the stuff we've used so far, I don't see any downside to it compared to liquid yeast, and it's shelf stable. You can hold on to it for a lot longer. So they're doing Lallemand, I think, is just kind of breaking into the brewing world.
Right.
And they're doing a really good job at it.
Yeah, and they've got their hands in a lot of pots. We love Sour Vissier from them. This beer is lovely. We've used their A.B. Vickers Aromazyme. The future is going to be delicious. I can't believe how good this beer is. It is so super duper crushable. Softer than soft, dare I say. To me, it seems softer than soft.
I love it. I mean, You don't often get like a super light saison like this that also like has like this, sort of sulfuric thing that I actually really enjoy. It's like just a little hair of it in there that really just washes well on the palate for me. I'm super stoked about it. I'm tasting, like you said, the pear note that really jams with me. Getting like oyster crackers or like soda crackers and maybe like a little like lemon zest or citrus zest in there. It's like,
I think there's a fine line between crisp and sharp.
Sure.
And this beer falls on that crisp side of the line, and it's really nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, guys. You don't have to say this because we're recording. You can be mean.
We haven't known each other that long, but I think you'd know if I hate the beer, I would tell you I hate this beer.
Yeah.
Offline.
No, I'm saying it on the internet.
Yeah, right on the mic.
I've said some shit on this podcast.
Yeah.
it's true.
Keeping it real is the most important thing. I just happen to really, really like A, beer, B, our beer, C, saisons, and oh my God, this is a great saison.
Henhouse Unruffled was created by Anna Scott. We record at Henhouse Brewing Company's Palace of Barrels in Petaluma, California. Our producer is Brian Henderson, and our associate producers are Josh Staples and Fridge. The music you've been listening to was written and performed by our San Francisco account rep McLean from his album Speechless and Speechless 2, which you can find on Apple Music, Spotify, Tidal, and anywhere one finds dope music. If you have a question or comment about this or any episode of Henhouse Unruffled, please let us know by calling 707-347-9425 to leave a message. You can also send an email to podcast@henhousebrewing.com. For more information, visit www.henhousebrewing.com or stop by one of our Bay Area tasting rooms. The voice you've been listening to is Imani Russell Black. Please listen and drink responsibly.
You made it this far. Now we got something a little different for you. We're starting a new thing we're calling Second Runnings. It's the podcast within a podcast at the end of the podcast. This is the second runnings for What We Will, Petite Saison. Whether or not we actually talk about that beer, I don't know. You'll have to listen. Man, I feel really good about the whole weekend. Like I was just telling some friends, like I just feel like my car battery has been recharged for craft beer. Like Brewers Camp is just jumper cables to the old Fridge's heart here.
Yeah.
Really has reinvigorated me.
Yeah, it was a rough 2 years, and I always say it's like, we were all making a lot of withdrawals from our mental health account and not making a lot of deposits.
Totally.
And even if it wasn't
such a
going
good sentiment.
Yeah, and even if it wasn't like super rough, it's just like that little stuff was like kind of chipping away at everyone's just like general happiness. And like, Boonville, like that's one of those things where it's just, your heart grew 10 sizes that day. You just learn to love the world again. After 2 years of just too much reading the news and not enough sitting around drinking beer with your friends.
It was certainly like Jim Carrey's The Grinch at the end of the movie and not Jim Carrey's Robotnik at the end of Sonic 2. Shout out to Jim Carrey. Final film. What a way to end it.
Was that really? Is he
that's what he
retired?
says. He's retired now. Yeah.
Okay.
Right after Sonic 2? Did you see Sonic 2?
I did.
Okay.
I went to Sonic and then saw Sonic because there's a new Sonic in Santa Rosa now.
I've
fast
heard.
food restaurant. Yeah.
Do they do the roller skates there? Or they just bring it up to you?
Nobody was on roller skates, and
Okay.
I'm quite frankly, I'm glad because they'd be throwing shit everywhere.
Wasn't that part of the entertainment?
Yeah, I feel like Santa Rosa residents just don't roller skate that much, and if you're like trying to force them to, you're gonna have a hard time hiring.
I like a certain level of danger with my fast food though, and I feel like that would bring that edge that I need.
Yeah, those old school like front brakes. So you put the foot forward and then you just bite it in the parking lot.
Yeah.
Could have seen that. There would have been cherry limeade all over it, mixed with blood.
That sounds delicious.
I'm in this like strange Australian Simpsons meme group.
Go on.
Yeah, somehow got connected to that through the Facebook meme group that me and my sister have been running for the last 6 years.
So are they Australian people? Are they Australian memes? Are they Australian Simpsons
There's
episodes?
a lot of Australian memes because it's like I don't know much about Australian government except for what I know from that group, and they're filtering it through obscure Simpsons referencing and memes that they're creating.
Oh, they're putting it into a format that
love
makes
it.
sense to you.
Yes. So I'm like, okay, now I get it.
I just need an obscure reference, and now we're golden.
Exactly.
I understand your political system perfectly. We should do that for every country.
We really should. It's actually becoming the new language, the universal language, memes.
What a time to be alive.
There's a meme thread that I'm a part of, and then it's become the in joke that people keep on learning that somebody died through it. They haven't been reading like the news or anything, and then some celebrity croaks and they see the meme about it and they're like, wait, is that real?
Yeah. Are they dead?
Oh, good. But it's celebrities, though, not like people in the meme thread. It's like,
No.
you're not shit posting. By the way, Dave's memorial service is on Sunday.
They just stop posting.
This isn't some like shitty horror film where it's like, oh yeah, you join that meme group and then all of a sudden,
Wait a sec, don't say that on there. Somebody might steal that.
I know, right? Reminds me of One Missed Call, though. That was a good one. Dun, 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 dun. That was a terrible horror film. No?
No.
Yeah. You get like a missed call and then like there's a voicemail of you dying and you hear it and then that happens.
Oh, yeah.
Was it one of those like they had like one idea and then tried to stretch it into an hour-and-a-half long film?
Yeah. And there was like somehow some like insane asylum nun thing that got wrapped into it as well. Just like,
Yep.
it's good stuff,
That all tracks.
But that was my ringtone for quite a while. Just that ringtone from that movie.
Is there any nun work that doesn't involve an insane asylum? Because from the movies I've seen, that's all nuns do.
Yeah, it's true. I didn't know they were so heavily involved. I mean, it makes sense. They're like social workers who are volunteering their time to do things for the disenfranchised, those that need the help.
Yeah.
Shout out to the nuns.
Shout out to Freddy Krueger's mom.
Yeah, she's
Did your
great.
best.
Thanks, nuns.
Oh man, what did they have to do in that one? They had to like bring something back to his grave in the junkyard.
Yep.
Yeah, Dream Warriors.
Yeah.
Oof, that's a good one.
That's a film.
That is a film. Right
And a
there.
jam.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Man, if only we were still doing like IP beers, because I would love a Freddy series.
Totally.
I don't know what that would taste like though. Old pennies.
Yeah, green beer.
Callback.
Something smoked.
Oh yeah. Good call. 100% something smoked.
Yeah.
Awesome. Kyle, you are an absolute legend, man. Thank you for coming on the podcast because, like, I was having a great time listening to you, bud.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Happy to be here.
And I know the listeners are going to feel the same way.
Yeah. My mom always said I had a face for radio, so I'm really just living up to that.
Dude, we're putting
There's the
another
intro.
picture of you up on our social today, and
yeah.
I took those photos, and I'm like smitten. I was like, those are. I couldn't choose between the sunglasses on and the sunglasses off.
Yeah, that's rough.
It's a hard life.
Yeah. No, it's been cool and it's fun. I love that like I get supported from my company to do stuff like this, and we didn't really have like rules set in place for collabs. I was just kind of like I'm gonna do this. Like I want to be involved in the community. This is how you get other people excited too, and I think they're gonna see that, and who knows? Hopefully it'll lead to more opportunities, and I'd love to just get back out there and be a part of the brewing community now that we're allowed to be a little more face-to-face and share space with each other again.
Absolutely, man. You're really putting yourself out there in a good way, and I appreciate it. I'm stoked about it, and I want to see more from you because you're very talented, my friend.
Thank you, brother.
Okay, so does that mean that we do a Rausch beer and then the ABVs are based on the ages of the children that he killed?
Oh my God, Zach, I love you.
Because I didn't want to put that one in there while we were still definitely. Like,
Oh no, we're still recording. I'm pretty
Oh,
sure.
okay.
Yeah.
That's
Put
going
that one
in.
in there if you want.
That is certainly going in.
I was like, give me a minute before I say this one.
Some of those might be pretty high, when he starts killing the teenagers.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like,
18% Rauch beer. Is the world ready?
Johnny was like
find out.
17, I think. Well, 17 ice beer, like bed portal.
That's a real good name.
Yeah.
Did I remember to tell you about a conspiracy that I stumbled across on the internet over Boonville? Because I meant to, and I don't know if I did or if we were maybe just both too many sheets to the wind.
Yeah,
So,
I had about 20 matinee idols like on Friday night.
that's another great beer. No, so this was one of the heirs to the Rockefeller fortune. I think it was Nelson Rockefeller, who got really into like indigenous art and like went to Papua New Guinea.
Yes.
Are you familiar with this
I'm
one?
familiar.
Yeah, so it's like he's down there studying. He's out. He's like talking to these like headhunter cannibal tribes, right?
What the heck?
So he goes back for his like second visit to like get really deep into these like primitive cultures, and he's collecting these like totem poles and masks and like these like artifacts to like bring back to show in his father's museum. And at some point, his boat, he's on a catamaran with another. I think he might have been American, but like a Westerner. Their catamaran capsizes, and the one guy who's not a Rockefeller stays on the boat. Nelson swims ashore. No one ever sees Nelson Rockefeller again, and they send in like search teams and all this stuff. And so like the official story is like at some point some people went in, and there's like this great like article in like Smithsonian where they talk about how they like this guy who like started to learn the language enough was like overhearing snippets of conversation, but this was like a don't tell the outsiders, like they had killed him in retaliation for like some military people coming in and killing some of their like chieftains.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And the conspiracy here is that it was like 10 years later, there's photographs of like an entire tribe coming down the waterway in their canoes, and they're like standing up and they're paddling and they're like going into war. Like it's straight up intense, which is super cool. But there's a very white dude on one of the boats, and he's wearing glasses and looks kind of like Rockefeller. What? And so, he's like declared dead, but the conspiracy is that like he just like gave up his like privileged life and was like, no, I belong amongst these people and I'm going to stay.
Whoa.
Yeah. So
That's
there's
cool.
actual photographic evidence of this.
That's super rad. I actually want to see these photos now. And as soon as you said catamaran capsize, I'm like, well, there's the name.
Oh.
The capsize catamaran.
Boom. Done.
Yeah. Dude, that's legit.
Yeah, so that was a good one.
Rad.
Yeah, the only other conspiracy that I know of that I think would be great for one of the conspiracy IPAs is the Britannia was actually the Titanic. I proposed that one years ago when I was working there. So the sister ship to the Titanic was launched like a couple years earlier, and it got into like a major accident like pretty much right away. And I can't remember which one was which, but like they like hit another ship in the fog, and they had to do all these repairs, and it cost a ton of money. And then the second time they went out, there was another incident with the same boat, and it like underwent like massive damage. And so they bring it back in, they fix it up, and so the argument, or the not argument, conspiracy is that the ship that sank, they actually were like, oh, this is the brand new ship, the Titanic, when in reality, like JP Morgan was losing like a fortune on this because the insurance wasn't paying out because they were at fault and the ship was falling apart and like already had all this damage done. And so they're like, oh yeah, this is totally the Titanic, and went out and sank it so then they could claim their insurance because there's no way that was their fault. And that the old ship that's still floating around is actually the new one. And the photographic proof of this allegedly is that the porthole windows along the bow changed from when it was in dry dock to when it was launched.
What the heck, dude? That's sick as hell.
Yeah. So sinking the Olympic, I think that would make a great IPA.
Sinking the Olympic.
Yeah.
Yeah. 100%. Write it down.
My only request is put Simcoe hops in it.
We got you. We got you. We'll have a just pure Kyle collab on that one. We'll just get
Perfect.
you.
Yeah.
It'll be a bitter alchemist collab on that one.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
We'll put some of my bitters in there. It'll be great.
Exactly. It makes sense for that beer, you know?
Yeah.
Some kind of steam beer. Maybe.
I'm into it.
I was talking about a much shittier conspiracy to some of the homies from Original Pattern. Back in the day, Bob may remember this pitch of mine, actually. I was like trying to do like a mosaic IPA that was like piggybacking on all these viral videos that were coming out at the time of how Chuck E. Cheese reuses slices. And they like...
Is that really conspiracy theory, or is that just like...
I mean... It's certainly a conspiracy. It's a big conspiracy at this point, you know. And I was just like, mosaic, so like pizza puzzle, you know, 'cause they're putting the puzzle back together. And then one of the original patent guys is like, more like Pasquale's puzzle, you know what I'm saying? Because that's their other brand for when they're like selling it through DoorDash. So you don't know you're getting Chuck E. Cheese pizza.